I think we have arrived at the time to begin. Professor Bose, if we have your permission, we can begin the event.
Please do start. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll mute myself until I'm called upon to speak. So, thank you.
Well, friends, my heart is full of love, full of gratitude to see all of you join us in this great moment of togetherness that takes us to our 20th anniversary. And what is really very heartening is all the provinces that figure in our national anthem, Jana Gana Mana. I think we have representatives here from all the provinces mentioned in the Tagore's anthem. And apart from that, we have luminaries like our chief guest, Professor Sugata Bose, Anita Auden from London, and Professor Jonah Raskin from California, Santa Rosa, Dr. Dina Pidalchi from Durban, South Africa. I greet and welcome you with all love in my heart. And though Satan is a name which probably is listened to with derision, but I remember that when he addresses the army, entire army in front of him, he says that my heart distends with pride. And I feel that same kind of sense of pride. Friends, what is very significant is the date on which we are organizing this event, 18th of March. 18th of March is a historic day in the history of freedom struggle of India. It was on this day in 1944 that the Indian National Army, under the leadership of our beloved Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, entered the Indian soil for the first time on 18 March 1944, and this movement became a prelude to the unfurling of the INA flag at Moirang on 14th April 1944. This day is equally auspicious for remarkings because on this day, 4 years ago, we had the privilege of a galaxy of scholars led by Professor Sugata Bose to launch the Bose spatial number published by Remarkings on March 18, 2018. And today again, on 2021, March 18, we have the pleasure and privilege of seeing such luminaries. The low point of the virtual meeting is that you can entertain everyone with words of love and gratitude, but you cannot offer them refreshments. You cannot offer them the delicacies of a lunch or dinner, and which I feel, it would have been an added privilege if we could have found some way of sending our hot cup of tea across to all the people, even in a virtual meet. Maybe someday this too will come. So friends, what I'm trying to say is that this happy coincidence of 18th March and Remarkings, it sets a kind of a benchmark of honesty, integrity, the sense of belonging, not only to the country, but in everything that we do in our lives. And this, they say that a journey seems to be very short when all the loving companions are there with you. And it is exactly what I feel today. 20 years ago seems such a short duration, like Emily Dickinson would say, that each seems shorter than a day. And this could be possible because you have always, apart from your contribution, apart from your association, apart from your leadership, you have given remarkings the love it desperately needed to retain and sustain the high standard of excellence, the challenges that comes when everything is governed by the financial economy. And as Gresham's law says, that it's the bad currency which drives the good currency out of the market. And I'm very proud to say that with friends like you, the good currency is there and the good currency will go on. With these words, I request Professor Shanker Dutt, who is literally a pillar of strength, to highlight some of the challenges that we have encountered in these 20 years of our journey. Professor Shanker
Dutt. Professor Ghosh, am I audible?
Yeah, yes, you are, sir.
Okay, thank you. Well, good evening, everybody. It's wonderful to have Professor Sugata, Bose, and so many dignitaries from across the globe to be participating at this wonderful occasion. Remarkings has completed 20 enriching years of publication with its 20th anniversary special number in March 2021. And today we have gathered in times of masks, hand washes, and physical distancing in a digitally invented world to celebrate this significant milestone. A number of literary and cultural journals over the years provided space for the public. Many of these have often struggled against the vagaries of quality, trying to find an appropriate balance between the excellence of established names and the need to create space for young researchers. Other qualities appreciated in a good literary journal are the values of its editorial, ethical responsibility, and the punctuality of its publication. These are three areas where Remarkings has scripted its success. It is an international referee by a journal that aims at providing a healthy forum for scholarly interpretations of literature, art, television, cinema, and journalism, with substantial focus on contemporary studies in English, including translations and creativity. Its chief editor, Professor Nibir Ghosh, wrote rather poetically in the 10th issue. I quote him, "It is perhaps a happy coincidence. Markings like the equinox, the vernal and autumnal equinoxes set the globe in perfect gravitational balance and become the harbingers of the spring of life, and the markings will continue to offer through a clockwork precision of this biannual event, hope and cheer that one," unquote. It is with this exacting precision of nature's laws that one has come to expect the arrival of Remarkings, and I cannot recollect an occasion to be disappointed. I stopped believing in magic almost 6 decades ago. But when India Post delivered my 20th anniversary special number in February, I entered my second China book. In my mind, I rewrote Shelley's wind-inspired lines in terms, and remarkings has provided space for discussion and interrogation of cultural productions in English and brought together of the world on a truly globalized forum for expression and exchange. If the journal enjoys the distinction of publishing distinguished academics, scholars, and researchers from over 80 countries of the world, Nobel, Pulitzer, Academy, and other award winners, it is no less significant that it has given ample encouragement to newcomers and young scholars by academic fraternity in the country. Each issue of the journal provides a diverse range and variety of intellectual sections on various Dipole, March 2000, Secretary John Steinbeck, September 2003, David Ray, March 2004, W.H. Auden, March 2007, and Doris Lessing, March 2008. These have attracted considerable attention from academics and researchers worldwide. Langston Hughes, General Bose, the immortal legend of India's freedom, January, Contemporary Post, November 2017, and India, Diversities and Convergences, May 2018, have decisively enriched the Remarkings treasure trove. Remarkings has had a distinguished list of advisors: Dr. Charles Johnson, Professor Sugata Bose, Professor Morris Dickstein, Jayanta Mohapatra, Dr. Ramesh Chandra Shah, and Professor Jonah Raskin. These luminaries have enriched the journal with their regular contribution. The editorial collaborators, along with Professor Ghosh, Dr. A. Karunakar, for production quality and punctuality. These eminent personages contribute to the authenticity of the journal's distinction and encourage qualities of scholarship, good writing, and some remarkable creativity that one has come to associate with Remarkings. Its outreach has been enhanced through its web version that provides convenient access to readers and scholars across the globe. In his 2002 editorial, Dr. Ghosh wrote, "What is therefore needed is an effective forum which can function as a repository for a coherent system of thoughts and ideas. I strongly believe that in addressing specific issues and concerns central to the human predicament, Remarkings will play a seminal role." And in continuation with the idea, he further writes, "A good work of art invariably leaves its indelible markings on the shifting pages of time. It may or may not offer solutions to the problems that beset mankind, but its sublimity lies in the way it contributes not only to the profound understanding of the age in which we live, but also in making us aware of our private fears and insecurities, our joys and hopes," close quotes. And indeed, the prophecies of 20 years ago have manifested over time in meaningful dialogue with texts. Umberto Eco spoke of written texts as being machines to generate interpretation. Readers from different cultural contexts and personal backgrounds engage with texts in different internal dialogues, revealing multiple meanings. The author is thus relegated to being a controlling device as readers. This is the valued space that Remarkings remarkings provides. The canvas of remarkings is varied and vast, comprising articles on canonical and marginal representations of human experience. In the editorial of the 20th century edition, in these times of crisis, upheaval and cataclysmic change and the political are inextricably intertwined, and that no policy of isolation is possible. As responsible citizens of the world, it is incumbent upon us to rise above our own limited interests and objectives and become empathetic to the oppression, poverty, discrimination, trauma, violence, bigotry, pain, and suffering that we witnessed all around us, close quote. And again quotes T.S. Eliot, to do the useful thing, to say the courageous thing, to contemplate the beautiful thing. That is enough for one man's life. It assumes special significance in an age of considerable bitterness and despair, when the world seems to be ideologically partitioned, when development and progress definitions and core human needs are subservient to lifestyle choices. It compels us to engage with literature and the kindred arts in search of understanding. Some years ago, commenting on remarkings, I had written, "It must be a daunting task to publish a journal with the editorial responsibility of sorting out variable quality and the publisher's jugglery to balance finance and production. I really like the honesty with which you have written the editorial in March 2006 edition of Remarkings. Often, we do not problematize, question, or challenge received knowledge because we are daunted by the reputations and the linguistic magic of what we read. You have taken the lid off manufactured mysteries in a short but telling editorial. Many congratulations for the excellent work you're doing." Today, as the 20-year milestone is crossed, it is a pleasure to reiterate what I had written and state that Remarkings is getting better with each passing equinox. I wish to conclude with a sample of the Salman Rushdie magic in his commencement address to Bard College, New York. "For in years to come, you will find yourselves up against gods of all sorts, big and little gods, corporeal and incorporeal gods, all of them demanding to be worshipped and obeyed. The myriad deities of money and power, of convention and custom, that will seek to limit and control your thoughts and lives. Defy them. That is my advice to you. Thumb your noses, cock your snoots. For as the myths tell us, it is by defying the gods that human beings have best expressed their humanity. I am optimistic that Remarkings will continue to express the best of humanity." Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Professor Shanker.
Thank you.
I mean, if we would have been sitting in the hall, we would not have our hands free, but we appreciate your deep love and expression, lucid expression in praise of Remarkings. And since you are an integral part of it, I think whatever you said, a great part applies to you and your presence in Remarkings. Thank you so much. Friends, now we will move on to a video presentation by Dr. Tijan M. Sallah, who's based in Maryland. Because of certain complications, he could not be with us in this virtual meeting. And I will, Saurabh, can we share the screen for that?
So you can do that.
Sure. Dr. Tijan M is again a lifeline of remarkings. He was the guest editor of our signature volume, A World Assembly of Poets, published in 2017 November. Over to Dr. Tijan sir.
It's a great pleasure to say a few words on this important occasion in celebration of the 20th anniversary of Remarkings. This very important journal run by Professor Nibir Ghosh, which tries to bring the world together. I wanted to say a few remarks. The year 2020 was a sad year. So much lives perished, got harvested by the Grim Reaper. Mainstream and social media bristled with news about the coronavirus. COVID, everywhere. We saw the grim headlines that assaulted us, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Uncertainty and fear went viral. It was truly a malignant year, perhaps best described as annus horribilis, a horrible year. But all is not gloom and doom. As we get diminished by the somber news and the countless funerals globally, there are anniversaries to celebrate. The discovery of efficacious and hopefully safe vaccines, Pfizer's and Moderna's and AstraZeneca's, as well as promising new therapies. Beyond that are also the continued bright signs of the joys of life, the musical, the visual, and the literary arts. The world has witnessed major trials this year, but all the world is not about to end. The sun is still rising. Just look out in the morning. In this spirit of optimism, I'm excited about the 20th anniversary of Remarkings, a literary and cultural publication that brings the world together through creative and critical oeuvres that celebrate the cultivation of human impulses and the triumph of the human spirit. The world has in the past few years been usurped by authoritarian and nativist leaders across the globe, preaching a vile nationalism. They want to erect walls rather than build bridges. They want to imprison rather than unleash the human spirit. They simplify complex problems and pit the innocent against each other. They deny science, including climate science, and they withdraw into a crude atavism. I'm reassured by platforms like Remarkings, where dialogue triumphs over tone deafness, where our common humanity is celebrated over the hereditary differences of tribe, belief, or geography. 20 years might be youth for a human being, but a significant non-trivial milestone for a literary publication. So I say happy birthday, Remarkings. May you continue to survive and disseminate culture and literature around the world and be a viable and important platform for the world to come together. Thank you all. Thank you, Professor Ghosh and his team for this important milestone for an important publication. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Tijan. It was such a pleasure listening to you, and I hope you could have joined us in this meet as you are always there. I mean, it is at least twice a week that I get to talk to Dr. Tijan, and every time we talk, we only discuss how we can do something better in the next issue of Remarkings. Thanks, Dr. Tijan. Now it is my privilege, pleasure, honor to invite a name with whom Remarkings members are extremely familiar. Yes, I'm talking of Professor Jonah Raskin. Jonah Raskin has been such a dear friend since we met him at Santa Rosa way back in 2004. And today, if I have to introduce Jonah Raskin, I will not tell you about the dozens of books he has published, because all that information is there with Lord Google. But I'm going to tell you something which will amaze you. The thing which I wish to share with you is one of his prominent books. Is titled Mythology of Imperialism. This book created a flutter when it appeared. And on the front cover of the book, there is an endorsement by the Nobel laureate Doris Lessing. And friends, I'm sure you'll be delighted to hear what Doris Lessing has to say. She endorses the book by saying, I wish someone like Jonah Raskin had been around to teach me when I was young. Hats off to you, Jonah. Another thing which I wish to share with you, which Lord Google cannot provide, is in 2008, at the end of 2007, when I was planning to do a special section on Doris Lessing, I discussed it with some of my friends, and they said, Doris Lessing? Who bothers about Doris Lessing? Why Doris Lessing? Why do you want to devote an entire section to her? And I thought it was useless to argue, and I just told them that a person who was not given the Nobel Prize, despite 50 years of continuous nomination for the Nobel, that itself is a good reason to produce a special section on Doris Lessing. And because I knew of Doris Lessing's connection with Professor Jonah Raskin, I asked Jonah Raskin, can we put a special number on Doris Lessing? And he said, quickly, both of us are going to release a call for invitation for papers, and I will get you, I assure you, I will get you, you take care of India, and I will get you essays on Doris Lessing from 3 continents. And friends, you know, the day we received the contributions from those 3 continents plus India, Jonah Raskin sent me an email and said that Doris Lessing has been awarded the Nobel Prize. And I wrote in my editorial in the 2008 March volume on Doris Lessing that because I do not know it is either because of or in spite of remarkings that Doris Lessing has got this, but we all must join together to wish her all the greatest felicitations that 50 years of persistence demanded. And what struck me, why I was actually keen on getting together a collection on Doris Lessing was I have almost every line written by her in my personal library. But the line which really touched me was that it is always a matter of opportunities. If one gets the opportunity, there cannot be any kind of a restraint that can stop a talent from reaching the heights of greatness. So with such association, with such great people, and the last thing that I would like to say about Jonah Raskin is that today, for the last so many years, Jonah Raskin is synonymous with the logo of Remarkings. As we can't publish Remarkings without the Remarkings logo, so an issue of Remarkings will be totally incomplete without the writings of Jonah Raskin. Jonah Raskin, over to you. Welcome from Agra. Welcome from the rest of the world.
Thank you very much, Nibir. I remember meeting you in Santa Rosa, and I don't think I knew what was going to issue from our meeting, but I'm very pleased at what has, that was the seed there, and it has taken root, it took root, and it has issued in a very beautiful flower from my point of view, my perspective. I'm honored to appear in Remarkings. I thank you very much greatly for asking me to write about all kinds of different subjects, including most recently you asked me to write about the results of the 2020 US presidential election. Sometimes I come up with an idea on my own and send it to you, like my essay on Ravi Shankar. A lot of times you ask me to write something, and I mean, like about Gulliver's Travels. Your assignments have always given me the opportunity to go back and reread and think again about books and authors that were once very much on my mind. So that's a great opportunity to rekindle all kinds of literary memories. And you also brought me to India, and I still remember very vividly being in New Delhi and traveling around and spending time with you. That was really a great visit. You know, after writing for Remarkings for so many years, to actually be in India, and I mean, it's also my book, The Mythology of Imperialism, started out as my PhD thesis, which I wrote when I was at the University of Manchester in England. So I was reading authors like Rudyard Kipling and E.M. Forster, and also a lot of Indian writers, and watching Indian cinema. So it was really important for me to actually physically be present in India. I was just writing something the other day And I was thinking that, you know, when Rudyard Kipling wrote "East is East and West is West, and never the twain shall meet," he surely knew that that wasn't true at all. I mean, they met in his own writings, in his own head, and East and West meet in every issue of Remarking. So I think it's really significant, Nibir, and everybody all who contributes to have, as somebody just said, you know, to build bridges rather than walls. And I'm honored to have been a part of this monumental global effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jonah.
You're
All
welcome. Yes, thank you.
loud cheering for you.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much for your loving words. And friends, I want to share one more thing about Jonah, that whenever I need something very urgently to make it very contemporary for the then current issue of Remarkings, I straight away write a line to Jonah, and my tagline is, "Jonah, remember, I don't take a no for an answer." And before 48 hours, the piece is with me. Thank you so much, Jonah. We love this and we'll remember this.
Okay.
Now, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, it's my proud privilege and honor to welcome Anita Auden Money. I think the middle name would give you an indication that our great Anita is the niece of one of the 20th century's greatest poets, W.H. Auden. It's a pleasure to have Anita here. But it's not only through Auden that I would like you to introduce you to Anita. First of all, ever since we came in touch, and she became again an integral part of Remarkings, giving us guidance, telling about the issues that we could probably take up, though they were very challenging. And I was to read something from an email which I received when I invited her for today's event. She wrote to me that I'm appreciative of generous and balanced views such as yours, but wondering how a true perspective on colonialism can ever be achieved. The old liberalism, which seemed such a good thing, seems to have spawned an offspring that is like a mutant virus. Hopefully, Remarkings can act like a vaccination against the variant virus. Thank you, Anita, for your lovely words. And it is something which she greatly appreciated, though at that point of time, we were not in correspondence, that in 2007, when his own country, Great Britain, did not observe his centenary, Remarkings, because of my own work on Auden, celebrated the centenary of W.H. Auden's birth by bringing out a special section which had some of the best scholars, Auden scholars in the world. And with these words, I welcome Anita with a warm heart, and over to you, Anita.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Can people hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I want to pick up something that you said. Well, firstly, I'm flattered and delighted to be part of all of this. I have always appreciated the international and intellectual range of remarkings. And also, particularly, Professor Ghosh's balanced approach. And to follow up on something he quoted from me, his essays in Mirror from the Indus provide an antidote to what appears currently to be a very immature trend in reaction to colonialism, race, and gender that is creating a false reality that divides rather than unites people in a period of turmoil where COVID reminds us of our universal kinship in susceptibility to a virus. His essay on Tagore pointed out how much Tagore disliked a narrow nationalism, and I quote, "If he desired to share India's message of cultural synthesis with the rest of the world, he also ascertained the need for India to incorporate others' messages into her own cultural repertoire." His essay on Kipling also offers a fuller understanding of Kipling's views on the East and West, which are really best understood in relation to individuals rather than to races. And this is a key to the question of prejudice. I was introduced to Professor Ghosh in Remarkings by a friend of mine, Shanker, a poet, writer, and rather more unusually, an investor, and was delighted that Nibir appreciated and admired my uncle, W.H. Auden. As I am half Indian, my mother, Sheila Bonerjee, was Bengali, and my father, John Auden, Whiston's brother, worked for the Geological Survey of India. I particularly wanted to feel that India, could understand and appreciate Whiston. Nibir's book, W.H. Auden, Therapeutic Fountain, published in 2010, does indeed illustrate a genuine sympathy and understanding. And the Remarkings commemorative issue that was published in 2007 to illustrate Whiston's birth centenary also showed a wide appreciation. There was, by the way, some appreciation in England, but in a limited way, not perhaps what they should have been. As you're all aware, Whiston has been subject to a good deal of criticism of his later work, both here in the UK and in America, some of it justified, as no writer or poet develops without making mistakes, but shows a great lack of understanding of what Whiston was trying to achieve. In A Certain World, Whiston's commonplace book, which gives a very good picture of what interested and inspired him, he says in the section writing, "What the poet has to convey is not self-expression, but a view of reality common to all, seen from a unique perspective, which it is his duty as well as his pleasure to share with others. To small truths as well as great, St. Augustine's words apply. The truth is neither mine, nor his, nor another's, but belongs to us all, whom thou callest to partake of it, warning us terribly not to account it private to ourselves, lest we be deprived of it." As to how he was going to apply this to poetry, he writes elsewhere, "The ideal at which I aim is a style which shall combine the drab, sober truthfulness of prose with a poetic uniqueness of expression." He did not find this easy, and in a letter to a friend speaking about Thanksgiving for a Habitat, he comments, "To keep the diction and prosody within a hair's breadth of being prose without becoming it is a task I find very difficult." So this was a poet abandoning the magic spells of poetry, producing a poetry of disenchantment. I think I probably don't have time to mention the number of people who really have understood Whiston, but he's lucky to have Edward Mendelsohn as his literary executor, who has written so wisely about him. John Filler, poet and academic, who wrote the commentary and introduced his work to a number of his students at Oxford. There are also a variety of poets and writers whose appreciation of the later work matters a good deal. Was Peter Porter, Hogbin Liu, the Chinese poet, who has been published, by the way, in Remarkings in the World Assembly of Poets. Gray Gowrie, Glyn Maxwell, whose understanding of Auden was influenced, by the way, by Derek Walcott, Lachlan McKinnon, Hamish Robinson, who gave an excellent talk at the National Theatre in relation to Alan Bennett's Habit of Art, pointing out that Auden's poetry was, in the profoundest sense liberal, a poetry released from poetic theologies and free to draw its sustenance from all sorts of profane sources. And there's Alexander McCall Smith, whose What W.H. Auden Can Do For You is a very personal appreciation. It is good also to read Tekla Clark's Whiston and Chester and Humphrey Carpenter and Richard Davenport Hines' biographies. Whiston, in a letter to my father written in 1941, said, "Every ohm of private happiness and decency is, I am convinced, a political asset to the world. This belief in the individual as unique and the need for individuals to take responsibility is a key to understanding Whiston's deep concern for humanity." Finally, I'd just like to end with the address which Nibir printed in full in his book, in the address to the Indian Congress for Cultural Freedom, made in 1951. Whiston reminds that there are two parallel realities, the reality of nature and the reality of history. Unreality comes when either world is treated as if it were the other one. And I think this is part, probably, of the problem we have now. I hope I haven't overrun my time.
Not at all, ma'am.
I think Remarkings is obviously a publication that cares about individuality. And this question of each person being responsible for their prejudices and for how they behave is a very important concept, I think.
Thank you very much, Anita.
Not at all.
It was such a pleasure hearing you. And as I told you, we are celebrating the completion of 20 years, but your role in Remarkings will continue, I'm sure. As
I
we
hope so,
celebrate
yes.
all the values that Auden taught us. The rise of authoritarianism is protest against those authoritarian tactics, the honor of individuality, and everything that Auden is known for.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Anita.
Pleasure.
Now I have a great opportunity today to introduce to you a person who needs no introduction. Professor Sugata Bose. We remember, sir, that when you spoke to the receptive audience on 18th of March, 2017, I'm sorry, because we were confusing with the 4 years. There was early morning, right from 6 o'clock the next day, I kept on receiving telephone calls that how do we thank you for giving us the opportunity to hear Professor Sugata Bose. The magic of his name still continues as the song with which he ended his speech continues to reverberate among the members of Remarkings. You all are aware of his stellar role as a scholar and historian in the numerous domains of South Asian studies, and his definitive biography of Subhash Chandra Bose titled His Majesty's Opponent it's quite recent book on nationalism. You all are aware of this. But I wish to share one or two things which probably will make us think of him with deeper respect. In the interview that we published in the 2000 volume of Remarkings, Bose, spatial number, he told me, my parents taught me since childhood not to claim any spatial relationship with the great revolutionary based on an accident of birth. I'm proud, of course, to belong to the country that produced Subhash Chandra Bose. When my father, Shishir Kumar Bose, received popular adulation and heard the slogan, Bose Khandan Zindabad, on his release from prison in September 1945, his father, Sharat Chandra Bose, told him to remember that this was nothing but Subhash's reflected glory. This humility is the trademark of Professor Sugata Bose. Another thing which I wish to share with you is regarding the great legend, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Chinua Achebe had once quoted that until the lions have their own historian, the story of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. The kind of hard work that Professor Sugata Bose and his esteemed father, Dr. Shishir Kumar Bose, his mother, Dr. Krishna Bose, who gave their all to create the Netaji Research Bureau, speaks a million, in terms of million books, that our great lion, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, has his historians who will keep his name fluttering in the minds of people. And I'm sure that what he said at the Agra function, when somebody mentioned, Professor Shanker, that mentioned that we should not use the appellation Netaji because everyone in every street corner calls him a Netaji now. So Professor Sugata Bose had mentioned that 100 years from now, in India, they will just call Netaji and it'll be only for Subhash Chandra Bose. And with these contributions that he has made, and the kind of, because I have since been here, like he was about 2 years ago, I met the Australian Minister of Youth and Sports. And when we met in a local school here in a function, I said, in your political visit to India, what did you observe about our politicians? The first remark that she made, and she made it public later, that they are totally inaccessible. Nobody can approach them. But if you, where Professor Sugata Bose is concerned, who has, apart from the distinction of belonging to that hallowed family, he has been the member of parliament in the Lok Sabha in India. And if you were to meet him anywhere, you would probably say, well, I am so-and-so, who are you? He is so humble and so straightforward. Whenever we were watching the serial Netaji before the lockdown, and in many of the discourses in that serial, whenever the little Subhash Chandra Bose, Subhash, came onto the stage, there would be someone or the other, especially his elder brother, Sharat Chandra, who would tell him, and his father too, who would tell him that Meru Dondo Shop Shomoy Shoja Ragbe, keep your spine always straight and walk erect. So a person who can walk with kings, as Kipling says, but never loses the common touch, that is Professor Sugata Bose. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Nibir Ghosh. First of all, may I congratulate Professor Ghosh and everyone associated with Remarkings on the publication of this wonderful 20th anniversary celebratory number. It was very good to hear Jonah Raskin and Anita, Auden, Mani. It is so wonderful that Remarkings has had special issues on Doris Lessing and W.H. Auden. No historian of 20th century, of the 20th century can afford to not cite W.H. Auden. He has a brilliant poem on every major historical event to have occurred in the last century, including, of course, on partition, which Aisha Jalal and I quote in full in our book, Modern South Asia, History, Culture, Political Economy. The 18th of March is, of course, a red letter day in South Asian history. On March 18th, 1944, the Indian National Army moved into northeastern India towards Imphal and Kohima. With Chalo Delhi on their lips, the Azad Hind Fauj crossed the Indo-Burma frontier and carried the armed struggle for liberation onto Indian soil. They marched singing their battle song, Kadam Kadam Badhaya Ja. Step by step, they would advance until the Indian flag fluttered over the Red Fort of Delhi. On that historic occasion, Netaji issued a lyrical order of the day in which he dwelt on the theme of sacrificial patriotism. There in the distance, beyond that river, beyond those jungles, beyond those hills, lies the promised land. The soil from which we sprang, the land to which we shall now return. Hark, India is calling, India's metropolis, Delhi, is calling. 388 millions of our countrymen are calling. Blood is calling to blood. Get up, we have no time to lose. Take up your arms. There in front of you is the road that our pioneers have built. We shall march along that road. We shall carve our way through the enemy's ranks, or if God wills, we shall die a martyr's death. And in our last sleep, we shall kiss the road that will bring our army to Delhi. The road to Delhi is the road to freedom. Chalo Delhi. The INA soldiers were ecstatic to be on Indian soil, and journalists reported scenes of jubilation and camaraderie as they closed in on Imphal and Kohima. My father, Dr. Shishir Kumar Bose, invited Abid Hassan, a very close aide of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, to deliver the Netaji oration in Calcutta 51 years ago on January 23rd, 1970. That morning, Abid Hassan delivered his beautifully crafted and deeply moving Netaji oration titled The Men from Imphal. He had chosen to foreground in his oration the harrowing retreat of the brave soldiers of freedom after their march to Delhi had been halted at Imphal. In one brilliant paragraph, he portrayed the character of the Army of Liberation to which he belonged. What a group we were, and ours was but a unit among many of its kind in our army. I felt proud, and I feel more proud today that I belong to it. Baluchis were there among us, and Assamese, Kashmiris and Malayalis, Pathans and Sikhs and Gujaratis, proud members of classes called the martial, and those till then denied reputation for martial valor, but who proved in battle that they could by their deeds claim equal honor. Every region in India was represented, and every religion and every caste mixed inseparably together, not only in bigger formations, but even in small platoons and sections, each unit being a living tribute to the unity of India. We had our different private faiths, and we had our different languages, but in our purpose and in our political belief, we were a well-knit, determined, and indivisible whole. And once they reached Mandalay, Netaji came to meet them. The Sikhs oiled their beards, the Punjabi Muslims, the Dogras and Rajputs twirled their mustaches, and we, the indiscriminates, Abid Hassan said, put on as good a face as we could manage. As Netaji spoke to them, their weariness seemed to depart, and they felt refreshing new blood circulating in their veins. Abid Hassan understood the essence of his leadership. He was all we had, our leader to whom each one of us, however humble, meant something, and who to us all meant everything. He belonged to us all of the Azad Hind movement, and entirely without any compromise. Abid Hassan then flashed back to October 1943 to illustrate the meaning of without any compromise by telling the story of Netaji's visit to the Chettiar temple in Singapore. He had turned away the head priest saying, "What, come to your temple where even Hindus of other castes are not permitted entry, not to speak of members of other communities who are equally near and dear to me?" He agreed to go when the high priest returned with an invitation to an Indian national demonstration. When we came to the temple, Abid Hassan remembered, I found it filled to capacity with the uniforms of the INA officers and men and the black caps of South Indian Muslims glaringly evident. The memory I retain, he said, is one of an invigorating music, as that of a symphony dedicated to the unity of the motherland. That music sustained him during his travails on the battlefield. Abid Hassan returned to us and stayed at our home in 1976, and we interviewed him over 3 days. And on the basis of that interview, my mother wrote a long-form article, Shoinikesh Sriti, the memory of a soldier. Krishna Bose's diary, which I was reading the other day, contains an important entry on March 14th, 1976, regarding the tape recording session that day. Abid Hassan says, she notes, on 17th August 1945 in Saigon, he would have accompanied Netaji, and Netaji himself wished so, but because of military protocol, Colonel Habibur Rahman was asked to go. He was senior. Anyway, all of them were to follow him shortly, so they did not realize that it would become a matter of such importance at the moment. Jonah Raskin mentioned Ravi Shanker. So I should tell you that during this period of the interview on March 15th, 1976, Pandit Ravi Shanker came to see the Netaji Museum at Netaji Research Bureau from where I am speaking today. And we showed him around. And on January 23rd of that year, he had presented a wonderful Netaji birthday concert for Netaji Research Bureau, performing the ragas Shyama Kalyan, Charukeshi, and Maj Khambaj on the occasion of the second International Netaji Seminar that year. The first one had been organized by my father in 1973. Since this is the 20th anniversary of a journal, I thought I'd read to you a letter that Abid Hassan wrote to my father about the Netaji Research Bureau's new journal, The Oracle, in 1979. My dear Shishir, thanks ever so much for sending me a copy of The Oracle. You have brought it out very well indeed, much better than I expected. But then you are always so thorough and painstaking, attending to all minute details, just like your uncle. And it is the drudgery of attending to details that pays dividends in the end. I know so many people envy you when success is achieved, but of course they are not there to help you with a hand at the wheel, pulling the cart out when it is stuck in the mire. How many years, day in and day out, have you been attending to the Netaji seminar? It is thanks mainly to your efforts that it has now turned out to be a veritable scholarly research institute. And I know that Nibir Ghosh, but also the team around him, attend to the details, and that is what makes Remarkings such a wonderful journal. 51 years ago, Abid Hassan had in his Netaji oration referred to these frustrating times when India again seems to be a house divided against itself. The times have turned even more ominous now, and inhuman acts that Abid Hassan deplored are becoming an everyday reality in today's India. His oration was, in Shishir Kumar Bose's words, a moving affirmation of the revolutionary faith given to us by our leader. Abid Hassan had closed his oration with a message of hope. The people of India will accept any leadership provided the call remains the same, and the call cannot but be. But forget not that the grossest crime is to compromise with injustice and wrong. I know Nibir had made a special request to me to end with a little bit of music. Now, as he was about to proclaim the formation of the Azad Hind government, Netaji asked Abid Hassan to get the national anthem, Jana Gana Mana, rendered in Hindustani, so that soldiers of the Azad Hind Fauj could appreciate the meaning of Rabindranath Tagore's song. In Singapore, Abid Hassan got the lyricist Mumtaz Hussain composed the Hindustani song in 3 verses rather than 5 of the original, and Ram Singh Thakur wrote down a band score based on the original tune. Mumtaz Hussain did not attempt a translation, but sought to capture the spirit of Tagore's song. Jaya Hai naturally became Jaya Ho long before A.R. Rahman made Jaya Ho famous the world over. The first verse that mentioned several place names bore a strong resemblance to the Bengali lyric. A comparison of the second verse, evoking unity, which is not part of today's national anthem, gives a clear sense of the connection between the Bengali original and the Hindustani version. Tagore had sung, Aharaha tabo avhana pracharita shuni tabo udara bani Hindu Buddha Sikh Jaina Parashik Mushalmana Krishtani Urab Paschima Ashe Tabo Singhasana Pashe Premahar Hai Gatha. And the Azad Hind version went thus. Sabke dil mein preet basaye teri meethi vaani har subah ke rehne wale har mazhab ke prani सब भेद और फर्क मिटा के सब गोद में तेरी आके गुंथे प्रेम की माला. So I really do hope that remarkings will play a role in binding not just all of the communities of India, but all of the communities and peoples of the world with a garland of love through their literary pursuits, which has always been both politically engaged and ethically informed. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sugata Bose. And I just wish I could be like Oliver Twist and ask for more from you. But I'm sure that you will always give your blessings for the progress of remarkings. And I too personally believe that a day will come when we will not value someone's contribution to the country with the heights of statues, but with the extent of their sacrifice and suffering and belonging to the world, with or without any accompanying emblem. And before I ask Professor Sugata Bose and all those who are present here who have a copy of Remarkings with them to hold it in their hands for a formal launch, I would like to say a few words about Remarkings to all present here. I mean, for almost an hour now, people have been extremely generous in giving their compliments to everyone who's associated with Remarkings. But there are one or two things which I would like to point out, which don't get noticed because we don't write about them. I wish to, in expectation that Professor Bose has forwarded, I wish to tell him that what our other concerns equally go together. We were planning a World Assembly of Poets, where poets from 80 countries contributed. And you'll be surprised to know that among the contributors, there was Mr. Per Wastberg, who is the chairman of the Swedish Academy that awards the Nobel Prize, the committee that awards the Nobel Prize for Literature. And we also included in that issue poems by a person called Heather Dohalau from Wales. I don't think many of you may have heard the name. When I was actually looking for prospective contributors to the volume for Remarkings, I chanced upon this important poet's email, and I sent a mail. I said that please, it would be an honor to receive a poem from you, though I do not know you and we have never exchanged any communication. After a few days, when I'd given up of hope of hearing from her, I received a mail saying that my mother passed away 2 years ago, but if you can consider even one of her poems for your collection, I'm sure she will smile in blessing from wherever she is. And we included her poem. So this, we believe that apart from just challenging the status quo, talking about things which we wish to change with our writings and with our approach, we are not trying to aim at any revolution through Remarkings. But if, as a writer of one article associated with Remarkings, and it focuses on not on the elements or the kind of resources, academic resources for change. But if a person can experience that change within him or her, I think, but with each individual like that changing, that we can move towards transformation. So we will live up to it. It is not a matter of celebration. It is a matter of reflection, that are we as academics, and what I feel very privileged, that the members, even celebrated writers, at times had to wait from 12 to 18 months to see their publication in print. But I'm proud to say that there are hundreds of academics, scholars in different parts of the world who have in their personal collection at least 10 to 15 remarks. And I'm sure we would live up to your expectations, and we would create a climate of opinion where you can, each one of you can participate as an individual. With these words, I ask Professor Bose to hold it in his hand, and all the members who have the copies with them, I would like to tell you that at times we don't probably indulge in all formalities, but in this audience is also present Dr. Sunita Rani Ghosh, who is also, a lot of credit goes to her for all the 44 issues that Remarkings has brought out in these 20 years. And a word for my student, Karunakar, with whom we started this enterprise. And one person I will mention after the formal launches there. Sir, we would like to see remarkings in your hand once again with every one of those who have their markings in their hands for the official launch.
I'm afraid mine isn't downloaded yet. It's on my system, so I can't hold it up, but I have it.
Your presence is there because I know we couldn't reach the hard copies because of the COVID problems. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, everyone. And we will remember this presence of yours for years to come. And I'm sure you will continue to share your love with us. Now, with these words, as we move towards the culmination of the event, I would like to request a person to extend, I won't say the formal vote of thanks, because when love is abundant, formalities have no meaning. The person I've requested to offer the vote of thanks on behalf of Remarkings is the person whom we all are indebted to, Sandeep Arora, who has kept us abreast of all the digital transformations that we have seen since the Remarkings was launched, and it has been such a pleasure to have him around. So I request him to kindly propose the vote of thanks. Sandeep Arora.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Finding appropriate words is a difficult task when the heart is full of gratitude. The gracious presence of each one of you on this historic occasion has made the event a thing to remember for years to come. Thanksgiving can never be a formality when we are celebrating 20 glorious years of a journey marked by a sense of belonging and companionship. On the cover we have an endorsement by the US National Book Award winner, Charles Johnson, that says, remarkings is India's final to the world. We attribute such accolade to the association of a vibrant community of writers, scholars, academics, and avid readers who have given their very best to make remarkings an epitome of excellence, invariably committed to value and ideals. The presence of Professor Sugata Bose as the chief guest has been truly inspirational. His missionary zeal to reclaim patriotism from the chauvinist, religion from the religious bigots, and politics from the corrupt is in perfect sync with the remarkings mission statement. Professor Jonah Raskin has always been an integral part of remarkings like its logo. It has become difficult to imagine any issue of the journal without its characteristic writings. Ms. Anita Auden's presence in our midst will remain a fond remembrance for the Auden admirers in India. Dr. Tijan M. Sallah's words echoed his unstinted love for remarkings. As always, Professor Shanker Dutt feelingly shared his lucid narrative of friendship with our journal. On behalf of Remarkings, I deem it an honor to thank one and all for sparing your valuable time to be with us today. As one who has been intrinsically bound by ties of love to Remarking since its very inception in March 2002, I am optimistic that we all will continue to travel together to ever new destinations, to do what is useful, to say what is courageous, and contemplate what is beautiful in quest of a better world. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep. And before we conclude, I wish to personally thank Mr. Saurabh Agarwal for making it such an hassle-free meet, because I was supposed to be handling all that, and he said that it's better that more people I could address to talk to you. We're thankful to you, Saurabh. Thank you so much. And one last request that I have is those friends who are here and whom I have not been able to greet and welcome at the beginning, for certain reasons, I have been receiving a lot of messages saying that they couldn't connect for problems at their end. I wish to request you, as I said in the beginning, that in virtual meets we cannot offer you tea or refreshment or dinner, but all of you, after this wonderful session, when you go back and make tea for yourself, please allow your imagination to see that I'm offering you the cup with my own hands. Thank you.
Thank you.
One and all.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Lovely evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank
What a
you.
lovely evening.
Inviting
Thank
me.
you so much, sir. Tons of congratulations to you.
Tons of congratulations. Hearty
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir, for inviting us.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to be a part of it all.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm honored with the love you have showered, and especially Anita, Professor Sugata Bose, Jonah Raskin, Professor Sim Siddiqui, Professor Meninanda, and everyone, Professor Dr. Padayachi from South Africa, Dheeraj Goyalji from Agra, and everyone else who's present here, please feel reassured that my heart reaches out in thanks to one and each one of you. Personally, Devashish and everyone that I can think of, Muniba ma'am, Devashish, and all the friends that we have around. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Good night, good afternoon, have a nice day, have a nice
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you so much.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank
Good
you.
job.
So much, sir, for
Thank you all.
inviting us.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. I'll be back with you very soon on other
Thank
platforms.
you, Nibir.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Aditya.
Mhm.
Mr. Chimborkar, Thank you for being with us. And Shukalpa, Professor Shanker Dutt. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.